Hey guys, it's Laura with Maitri Multimedia, and this is my husband Jason, and we're going to show you how to make bean and spinach soup.
So the ingredients that we need for the spinach and white bean soup is, of course, a fresh pack of spinach, vegetable stock or vegetable broth. I use 2 cans, 1 garbanzo beans, 1 Great Northern beans. That'll make up the base of the soup. Then we're going to have the flavoring for the soup. I use a poblano pepper. You can change out the pepper to a different spice if you would like. 1 whole onion, 3 cloves of garlic. Need some extra virgin olive oil, pepper, salt, oregano, basil leaves, and a little bit of lemon juice. You can either use a fresh lemon to squeeze or you can use a pre-squeezed lemon juice. So I'm going to chop up and prepare the ingredients, and we'll come back when we are ready to mix and combine things together. All right, we've got our vegetables chopped up, so now we're at the point where we're going to start combining the soup. So we have 2 parts to this soup. We've got our base, which is going to be the vegetable broth, the beans, and the spinach. And then we have our flavoring, which is going to be the vegetables, so the peppers, onions, garlic, and it's going to get mixed in with the olive oil, pepper, salt, oregano, basil, and lemon juice. So the base is going to go into the crock pot, but we're going to start off the flavoring and seasoning mix in a pot and kind of saute it together because it helps enhance the flavor a bit. I usually start with the flavoring because the soup is going to simmer for several hours in the crock pot. So it's better to get this part started because as it's cooking, we can worry about combining the rest of the ingredients while that's going on. So to start with, you want to get your pan to medium high heat, and you're going to add approximately 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. One of the quick tricks for this is a wrap around the pan is approximately 1 tablespoon. This doesn't have to have exact measurement. This is more or less your goal is to make sure that your vegetables don't dry out while they're heating. So with the oil in the pan, I start by getting a little bit of pepper going. About 6 turns of the pepper mill, or approximately half a tablespoon. I don't like real salty soup, and you're going to get some of the salt with the vegetable stock, so I just do a little bit of salt. Measuring wise, we're going to do a palm of oregano, just a touch more there, so it ends up being approximately a tablespoon. Same with the basil. You end up with, again, about half a tablespoon. And then we do a squirt of lemon juice. Okay, approximately a tablespoon. All right. Now, once that gets started in the oil base, we have all of our seasonings now in with the oil. And we're going to start with just adding the pepper and onion. The garlic we're going to add closer to the end because it requires a much shorter cycle time, or much shorter cook time, I should say. And you don't want to overburn the garlic. You just want a little bit of a sear over it. Otherwise, you mess with the flavor palette a little bit. So we're going to add our peppers. We're going to add our onion. And we're going to leave our garlic off here to the side to add just a little bit later. Okay, so we'll give that a quick stir in. So now our vegetables are getting started. And what this is really going to do is this is setting the seasoning for the soup. It's going to be your primary source of the flavor. Now back over here at the crock pot, we're going to be combining our beans, our spinach, and our vegetable broth. Right? Personally, this step doesn't really matter what order you want to combine these ingredients in. This is all low temperature crock pot simmering. Personally, I like to start with the spinach just because that way the beans can add in and put some weight on the spinach to hold it down once we add the vegetable broth. All right? So we're going to do 2 hefty cups of spinach, which is approximately a handful. Okay. All right. So we did 2 handfuls there. And as you can see, that pretty much fills in the pot. But one thing to remember with spinach is as it's simmering, it's going to cook down a lot. All right. Next, we have our beans. Now, you're going to want to drain the beans. So draining the beans is basically you open up the cap, press your finger to the top of the cap, and let the juice dump out. We don't need to make it bone dry, so if there's a little bit of juice left, we're not worried about it. It'll just add in with the flavoring. And we're going to do that with both of our cans of beans. So again, one of these beans is garbanzo beans. The other can is Great Northern beans. Okay, so at this stage, we now have the beans covering up the spinach, putting a good coat there on our crock pot. Now we're going to be doing this vegetable broth. You can also use vegetable stock. Very little difference, especially when we're talking about the soup. While we're doing this, we're going to take a quick stir of our seasoning. Make sure that it's browning, sauteing the flavorings and seasonings all together and evenly cooking there. So this is a 32-ounce carton, and we are pretty much going to be using the entire thing. So that just pours in over the top of the beans and the spinach. All right. And then one thing as a tip, I always like to keep a little bit of extra on hand because sometimes you're going to have a little bit of variation in the size of your onion, the size of your pepper, and potentially how much you actually get with the spinach. Some people like a thicker soup, some like a little thinner soup. So having a little bit of extra vegetable stock or vegetable broth on hand allows you to adjust for how you personally prefer your soup to look. All right, so give that another stir as that continues to cook. All right, so then on your crock pot, I like to set the crock pot to low, and with crock pot cooking, you always need to make sure that it's covered. So that's going to start warming up while we continue to get our seasonings ready to go. All right. So we're looking for that nice little sizzle. We're not trying to boil the oil. So with olive oil especially, you want to make sure that your heat is not too high. And another thing that you're going to want to do is with the temperature, as you're getting closer to ready to add the garlic, we are going to be turning that temperature down a little bit just because the garlic really is a lot more delicate And we just want that slight little browning, slight little caramelization on the garlic. All right, so this is going to take a little bit longer, so I'll come back to you as soon as we're ready to mix it all together and add the garlic. All right, so we're back and we're about ready to add the garlic. You can see here we're starting to get some caramelizing on the onion and the peppers, and they've softened up. The onion goes a little bit more translucent when it's about ready to go. So now what we're going to do is lower our temperature down. We're going to get to medium low. And we're just going to let that sit there for about a minute or so. Just let a little bit of that extra heat dissipate off the pot. And then we've got our minced garlic that we're going to add. Now this is the stage where you're going to start getting a lot more fragrance coming out in the kitchen, because the garlic, once it starts cooking in the olive oil, really brings off a good fragrance. All right, so I'm going to give that a quick stir, let it mix in with the seasoning that's already in our soup, or in our soup mix. So we'll just give that a little bit more time to simmer to start activating that garlic. All right, so our garlic finished cooking in with our other ingredients, and we've now mixed it in with the rest of our soup in the crock pot. We're going to give this just a quick little stir through, blend all the ingredients together. Make sure we've pressed everything down into the broth. And now we're going to just let this simmer. It's going to take about 3.5 hours or so. Every hour we're going to come back and stir. And then at the last hour we're going to look at the soup's consistency to see if we want to add more vegetable stock to make it a little thinner. But we'll see when that time comes. So now we just make sure it's covered and we set our timers. Hey everybody, we're back with our final product here on our white bean and spinach vegan soup. So it's looking good and smelling great. So we didn't have to add any extra broth for this one. So we are ready to eat. So grab your favorite bowl, go Broncos, go Steelers, and of course, you know Laura can't say that without go Buffs.
Go Buffs!
All right, so hope you enjoy this recipe. Have a good one.